In today's video, I want to touch on some NHL trade rumors concerning the Philadelphia Flyers, Buffalo Sabres, and New York Rangers. I want to take a quick look at the Eric Cernak suspension of the Tampa Bay Lightning. Plus, we also have a quick update on the Bill Peters situation with the Calgary Flames. We'll get into all the latest coming up next. So welcome back here to Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have a variety of news updates and rumors to discuss here today. So let's kick things off with the Eric Cernak suspension, which was announced yesterday evening by NHL Player Safety. Now, the defenseman from the Tampa Bay Lightning has been suspended for 2 games for a very vicious and malicious elbow right to the head and face area of young Sabres defenseman Rasmus Dahlin, who unfortunately did suffer a concussion on the play and will be out for an indefinite period of time. Of course, concussions are very difficult to deal with. You really don't know how long it's going to take to make a recovery, and if a full recovery is even possible at times. Hopefully the young Swedish defenseman will be okay, but it's really unclear how long he's going to be out. But given the fact that Cernak doesn't have a history, but also given the fact that there was an injury on the play, and it's certainly something that could have been avoided, Player Safety has suspended him for a couple of games here, which I certainly think is more than fair. So let me know what your thoughts are on the suspension for Eric Cernak of the Tampa Bay Lightning. Do you think a 2-game ban was sufficient here, or do you think they could have justified handing out a stiffer penalty? Now, regarding the Bill Peters situation with the Calgary Flames, which we discussed yesterday, there were points in the day when it looked like he was being relieved of his duties as head coach of the Flames, but still to this point, that has not yet happened. Now, personally, in my own personal opinion here, I really don't see how it could end any other way. I really think the thing that's holding this up the most is probably a lot of lawyers involved between the league, the coach himself, and the team. They're probably trying to make sure that they do this properly. When he's saying a thorough investigation, I'm really not sure that they really need any more facts on the situation. I mean, we have multiple players that have spoken up about multiple issues, one including racism, one being, abusive and violence and towards a player. Multiple sources have backed up each situation as well. So I really don't think they need more information that way. I think it's really boils down to legalities here, which is why we don't have an announcement. But what they did announce is that he will not be behind the bench as head coach of the Flames for the game that they have against the Sabres this evening. Assistant coach Jeff Ward will be handling that responsibility, at least on an interim basis for the next game. I do think if Peters is ultimately fired, that Ward likely will be an interim head coach, and they can decide if they want to give him an opportunity to be the full-time coach or if they want to continue to search for a new replacement. But at the end of the day here, for the most part, coaches have guaranteed contracts, so they continue to be paid out even if they're fired or relieved from their duties. And I do think in this case, they're probably reviewing the language to see if they are required to pay that out or not. And this very well could be something that sets precedence for the future, because it seems like a lot of players feel like they have a voice now and are going to be speaking out. And there could be many more of these situations about current or former players and coaches here in the near future. So it's something that I don't think is going to be going away anytime soon. It looks like it's a little bit of a movement, and players are feeling more comfortable speaking up now that there's more of a platform and opportunity to do it, at least for those that are no longer actively in the game. Regarding some trade rumors and some players that might not be extended, let's take us over now to the New York Rangers and pending unrestricted forward Chris Kreider, who have apparently to this point there's still no contract extension talks between he and the Rangers. His season so far has only been okay. The Rangers, of course, hasn't been having a great year as well. And because there's no extension talks, there's still more talks that he likely will be moved. Of course, he'll be 30 years old when the next contract kicks in. I don't think that's something the Rangers care to do. I mean, I do think there's also been some rumblings around Ryan Strome. Now, Ryan Strome's actually having a fantastic year for the Rangers, but it's unclear right now if they want to re-sign him moving forward or not as well. I would think if they do decide to keep him around and they want to get talks going sooner than later, depending on how strong his season goes, it very well could be more costly if they wait any longer, but he very well could be a pretty decent trade chip since he's been producing more points and playing a much stronger game this season so far, and even towards the end of last year he was doing all right as well. So I guess we'll see with the Rangers. I do expect the sell-off to continue that we've seen over the last few years, since it's not looking like the playoffs are going to be happening for the Rangers anytime soon here, at least not for the current year. So I do think those are a couple of players to watch, but Kreider's more likely than Strome, but I know there's a lot of players. There's a lot of people saying that the Rangers should sell high on Strome while the opportunity is there, because his likelihood of regression apparently is greater based on a lot of the analytics and a lot of the more advanced tools that they use to analyze players. So I guess we will see, but keep your eye on the Rangers. I do think we're going to see some movement before the deadline from that club. Now, taking a look at a couple of players that have been healthy scratches for an extended time and seem to be falling out of favor where they currently are. Let's touch on Kyle Turris of the Nashville Predators. 4 straight games now that he's been scratched. Not having a great year, but he didn't do too badly, in my opinion, when he has been in the lineup. But head coach Peter Laviolette was recently asked about Kyle Turris' standing with the club and with the, how the future is going to hold here. And he was questioned because of the fact that they've actually had call-ups come up from the American Hockey League and come straight into the lineup rather than play Turris. It seems like Laviolette doesn't really have any interest in putting him in there. And basically all he would say was that it was a lineup decision and that he feels the lineup is better with the younger guys in it, and that Kyle Turris is under contract and still part of the organization. He really wouldn't get into a whole lot of details, very short-lived, short on the answers, which is really what I would expect from a head coach in that kind of predicament. But ultimately, it just looks as though his time in Nashville very well could be coming to an end. As we reported before, David Poile, the GM, has been looking for a trade for him since the offseason, really ever since they decided to sign Matt Duchene. If they could move the $6 million contract, it would certainly be a huge help to their cap situation, but because he's making $6 million, not getting a chance to play, and not putting up the greatest numbers, it's certainly not going to be easy to move. I know in the past, David Poile really does not like to retain salary, but it might be something that might have to be done, or some kind of a sweetener added to the mix, or possibly take back another contract from another club from a player who also might be struggling and due for a fresh start as well. I do think Turris could very well be a productive player in the right situation, given the right opportunity to play. I don't think he's really washed up or anything as of yet. I just think he needs to get a fresh start. So we'll see what happens, but I think Kyle Turris will be moved if they can find the right deal. It's just more complicated because of the contract. Now, staying with players that have been healthy scratches, let's take us to defenseman Shane Gauss of the Philadelphia Flyers. Now, Gauss has been on scratch on numerous occasions, not really having a great year. Many thought, like me, that he would bounce back and have a better year after having an off year and struggling a lot last year, but that's yet to happen. He's been mentioned in trade rumors as dating back to last year and over the summer as well. There was a lot of talk to Flyers after Chuck Fletcher took over and very well might try to shake things up more back there, and he might be one of the trade chips. And they did certainly shake up their blue line a fair bit going into the year, but Gauss was not moved. Now, of course, they added some other guys like Braun and Niskanen, moved out some other pieces. Provorov will certainly bounce back and having a better year, which is great. They still have Robert Hagg. Travis Sanheim's proved to be very well. Phil Myers has looked pretty decent. So they do have enough defensemen right now that it wouldn't be shocking to see them move Shane Gauss for another piece of the puzzle here. I think they're pretty solid in goal longer term with Carter Hart. Maybe they could consider making a different kind of upgrade, another area of the team. But there's lots of talk about Gauss in the past linked to teams like Montreal. I'm not sure if they have any renewed interest on that front or not, but clearly he's got a pretty decent contract if he can play up to his potential. But right now, even the contract for how he's playing really is, might be tough to move because it is a longer term. But if a team is willing to take a chance and see if they can get him back to the play that he used to be able to produce, then it would certainly prove to be a very valuable move. So I guess we will see if Gauss ends up anywhere, but he's another player that seems to be falling out of favor in his current club. Has been a healthy scratch and probably could benefit from a fresh start with a new club. Next, let's touch on the Buffalo Sabres. There's some information from Elliot Friedman and a couple of recent radio hits through Sportsnet indicating that they do have up to 3 defensemen that they've been floating on the trade market, which we've kind of touched on in the past. Defensemen are Bogosian, Scandella, as well as Colin Miller. All 3 of them could possibly be out there on the trade market, according to Elliot Friedman, in hopes to bring back 1 or possibly even 2 forwards. Now, as I mentioned earlier in this video, a young Swedish defenseman, Rasmus Dahlin, who's clearly becoming the leader in the blue line back there, is out with a concussion that might slow things down, but given the fact that there's 3 guys back there that they're willing to trade, I can't imagine that they would completely rule out a deal if the right deal comes along. But they have enough other injuries with the forwards as well, like Okposo and Saboka and others, and Jimmy Vesey not producing, that really they need help up front. And if the right deal is found, even with Dahlin being injured, I'm sure that one of these defensemen at least would have to be included here. So I guess we'll see here, but according to Friedman, they're still actively pursuing 1 to 2 forwards and up to 3D or the potential trade targets for Jason Botterill. Clearly, the Sabres need to do something, and they need to do something quickly because this season could get away from them very quickly if they don't get things turned around. Now, one little piece of good news here as well before we go. TJ Brodie, the Calgary Flames, of course, who had a really bad situation on the ice, an emergency situation where he ended up convulsing and having a seizure on the ice a while back, is now been activated off injury reserve, so it looks like like he's ready to resume playing here and is okay. So at least TJ Brodie is able to get things in order. I'm not sure exactly what the status is and what was all revealed through the different testing and everything that he went through with the medical staff, but he is able to return to play, and hopefully he doesn't have any more incidents like he did at Flames practice here not that long ago. Of course, as always, I want to know your thoughts and opinions and everything discussed here today, so let me know what your thoughts are, especially with some of these very interesting players on the trade market. Players like Turris and Gauss, and Kreider, and more. Where do you think you'll end up? Give me your mock trades down in the comments that you think we'll see before the NHL trade deadline, and we can discuss further. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing and turning on your notifications so you don't miss any future content, and give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it as well. I'd appreciate it if you did. As always, thank you for watching, and I will catch you next time.